Alright, so I just wanted to do a quick video here. So in my last video, I touched base on how you can keep your Linux computer secure by both updating your kernel and updating sudo manually. Video is a little longer than I would like, but I tend to rant about shit, so I'm going to make this video short. One of the things I touched on in my last video was one of the reasons why it's really important to update your kernel, and one of the reasons why I like using Ubuntu-based distros is Ubuntu-based distros are very easy to update the kernel if you download a piece of software called the Buku, which stands for Ubuntu Kernel Update Utility. Other distros, it's not exactly beginner-friendly if you want to update your kernel. Unless you're really good at copying and pasting and you can find a website that you can just copy and paste everything without it being an issue. I wouldn't recommend it if you're a beginner though. Someone like me who's fairly knowledgeable about Linux, I personally wouldn't even attempt it because shit can go wrong. And that's why I like Buku, as I showed in my last video. Just click a few buttons and you're updated. It's a really great thing, and it's a great piece of software. But one of the things I also touched up to date on why every other month I update my kernel isn't necessarily because I have to, but there's security fixes and patches that, yeah, sure may not be the most necessary, you know, but mainly because features. They're constantly adding features, so more hardware support, more feature support, what's the word I'm looking for? More product support, sorry. And one of the things that we've had for a long time, if we open Synaptic here, put in our password, is if you wanted to use an SD card from, say, your Android phone, or really any SD card in general, you would have to install this package here called ExFAT-Fuse. And that would allow you to read and write ExFAT files. Now, I normally don't update my kernel more than once every other month. I've always stuck to that, but the reason why I'm updating is because shortly after making that video where I updated my kernel in real time, a new kernel was released, and it's a major release. So if we go to System Info here, I'm now running 5.4. This is a major release. And 5.4, as you can see, I uninstalled ExFAT-Fuse. And the reason why I uninstalled ExFAT-Fuse is because you don't need it anymore. It's baked into the kernel. So if you update, even if you're running older hardware like me right now, even if you're not planning on getting a new computer for maybe a couple of years, having the latest kernel is great, because in the event that you do upgrade your hardware, you can just do that. I touched base on how I updated the Wi-Fi card in my laptop with an Intel Wi-Fi card, and the drivers are just baked into the kernel, but some of the older kernels don't have it. I don't know which kernels added it off the top of my head, but it's things like that. If you're just updating shit or trying to use peripherals or hardware, having the most up-to-date kernel can be a necessity to make sure you have the compatibility. I have an Android phone that's running Ubuntu Touch right now, so I'm not using Android anymore, but there are a lot of uses for ExFAT. Most every SD card uses ExFAT, and there is an SD card reader on my fucking computer here. If I just pop this out, there's like a dummy card. It's one of those scenarios, but I can put an SD card into my laptop. And being able to read and write ExFAT is very important, and I'm glad it's finally baked into the kernel, and it's one less thing that when I set up my install, it's one less thing I have to go and install. When I set up my system, I mean, it's one less thing I have to install. I can't think straight right now. And it's really good to see some of these features that are really important in today to be implemented into Linux. I'd like to see this more. I think Microsoft open sourced the drivers, if I'm not mistaken, and I would like to see Microsoft do more of that. But then again, it's Microsoft. I don't really trust them too much as a company, especially with their latest version of Windows just being a giant piece of shit. I mean, it's got malware, it's got adware, it's got keyloggers. It's like they just put every piece of virus and malware into it just so they can track everything you do on it. And, you know, what if that gets into the wrong hands and maybe you have a creepy stalker or some shit that's good with computers? I don't want to think about that. And I especially don't want to do my online banking on a computer that has that shit, because then I'm worried, is my bank safe? You know, if someone has access to everything I type in shit. It's bad enough that you have these security issues with using an Intel CPU, which is one of the reasons why I hate this fucking computer. It's just not something I like thinking about or having to worry about. And that's why I use Linux over Windows. I know I said I'm going to keep this video short, I'm going to wrap up. But, yeah, updating your kernel in Linux is very important. I would recommend using a Ubuntu-based distro like Linux Mint. I would highly recommend Linux Mint in general. I'm going to make a video about that coming up soon, of why I use Linux Mint over Ubuntu. DistroTube, I think is the name of the channel, talked about, oh, Linux Mint should die and shit. I follow him, I like his videos, but I think he's very wrong and doesn't understand the difference. I don't know him personally, honestly. I just follow him on social media. But I'm going to make a comparison why you should use Linux Mint over Ubuntu, and why Linux Mint is better than Ubuntu. But that being said, Linux Mint is a great distro, and it's really good to use an Ubuntu-based distro. Just because you can update the kernel so easily, where it's literally just a couple clicks and it's updated. And then you just have to restart your system. And if you're doing something in the moment, unlike Windows, you can actually put off restarting. I can update my software while I'm working. It's one of the benefits of Linux over Windows. I know this is not supposed to be a comparison, I'm just fucking ranting at this point. But yeah, so now you don't have to install ExFAT-Fuse. ExFAT support is baked right into the kernel. I've tested this. It works flawlessly. And there's really not much else to say. I mean, this is just a fucking great update, and I kind of wish I had waited to do the video, but at the same time, not really. So if you are running Ubuntu or any Ubuntu-based distro right now, I highly suggest installing Buku and updating your kernel to 5.4, I think it was. Yeah, 5.4. Update your kernel with Buku to 5.4. It will really be a benefit. I notice my system runs better on newer kernels too, even though it's older. I'm just going to end this video because I am just ranting right now. And I will see you in the next video where I compare mainstream Ubuntu, just plain old Ubuntu, to Linux Mint, and what problems I've had with Ubuntu and why I don't recommend it. I will get into that in the next video. In the meantime, consider subscribing to my channel, like this video if it helped you out, and if you have anything you want to recommend for Linux that I may not know about, write it down in the comments section. Someone actually recommended GUVC View, and I really like it over cheese, so Let me know if you have a piece of software that you'd like to see, that you like to use, that I might want to look at. I really appreciate the recommendations, I really do, because even though I've been using this system for such a long time, there's still things I find, and it's like, holy shit, how did I not know about this? So I'm going to end the video here. Again, consider subscribing to my channel. I'm going to be doing more Linux videos. And definitely try out Buku if you're on an Ubuntu-based system, and update your kernel to 5.4. I don't know why I keep mixing it up. 5.4 is great kernel. It has great support for ExFAT, and I'm glad it's one less thing I have to install when I set up my system. Alright, until next time, I'm going to end this video.